Welcome, family, to another episode of Dream, Heal, Thrive. Today, we are diving into a very powerful episode, a conversation about relationships, romantic, platonic, familial, professional, all of it, right? And making sure that we're getting the whole cake and not just the crumbs. So I know there's so many women out there who resonate with this because it's too often that we find ourselves accepting crumbs, the bare minimum in our relationships. And, just enough to keep us around, right? But not quite enough to fulfill us and, just truly fulfill us. So today we're saying no more.
Yes. And to help us break this down, we have an incredible Samantha Gregory with us. She's the author of No More Crumbs: How to Stop Dating and Mating for Crumbs and Get to the Cake You Deserve. This book is all about stepping into relationships that reflect our worth, and I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. So, Samantha, welcome. We're excited to have you. Before we get into the deep stuff, can you share what inspired you to write No More Crumbs and what the crumbs metaphor means when it comes to relationships?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, ladies, for having me on your show. I'm really thrilled to be here and be able to share my book as well as my story and how this book transformed my life and hopefully will transform other people's lives. But what prompted me to write the book was just a series of bad relationships. I was healing. I was asking questions, really, like, why do I keep putting myself in these situations where I am attracting crummy relationships, crummy guys, crummy circumstances? And I just was thinking back through all the signs that I missed, all the things, the red flags, the things that I just kind of ignored or wasn't even aware of. And I think the biggest thing is awareness. I wasn't aware of a lot of things. But as I started my healing journey, off the heels of a really bad relationship, I began to self-reflect, become more aware, and even with other women as hearing their stories, like, why do we keep accepting crumbs? Why do we keep running after these men? Why do we keep diminishing our worth? And the mantra was no more crumbs. We're not accepting any more crumbs. We're not going to be settling for the scraps that men give us. And crawling on our hands and knees under this table that they claim to provide for us, but only are willing to give us the bare minimum, like you mentioned earlier. And so that was really the crux of why I decided to write the book, the inspiration, and also as an education for girls like my daughter who
Mhm.
also were coming behind me, becoming behind my generation, and were about to enter into this phase of their life where they were courting relationships and being courted by guys and what to look for and how to really, I guess, arm yourself. Because
Mhm.
my daughter and I always say forewarned is forearmed. And so this book is a forewarning for women everywhere, young girls especially, so that they are not accepting crumbs anymore. They're not accepting the bare minimum, but they are putting themselves first and building a solid foundation of self-love.
I love that. I love that
Yes.
incredibly strong and powerful message that we need to hear. And a lot of times we hear, so don't settle for less, don't settle for the
Mhm.
crumbs. But sometimes we don't even realize we're doing it. So do you have some key signs that indicate that we're actually accepting crumbs, not just in dating, but in our other relationships with our family, our friends,
Mhm.
our jobs? What are some of those signs that we can look out for?
Well, I think one of the biggest signs that's completely missed or often missed is what has been your relationship with your family of origin. What has been your default setting? A lot of
Mhm.
times we don't realize that if we've been in relationships that in families where there has been abuse of any kind, where there has been gaslighting, manipulation, where there has been physical abuse, sexual abuse, any kind of abuse in relationships, anything outside the norm, dysfunctional relationships in your family, you're pretty much set up to be in a toxic relationships and not even recognize or realize it's a toxic relationship. It's
Mhm.
not just about a person punching you or hitting you. It's about the words that they're saying. Are
Mhm.
they treating you like a second class citizen? Are they diminishing your thoughts, your needs, your desires? Are they ignoring your request? That's a simple one right there. If you say, I really
Right.
don't like when you're late, but
Mhm.
every time they get later and
Yes.
later and later. Or if you
Right.
say, I don't really feel comfortable with um, sharing this part of myself or doing this, but they try to control you. If they try to manipulate you, they gaslight you and make you feel like you're crazy. That's a big warning sign. But even the
Mhm.
more subtle things, they um, require that you jump through these certain hoops in order to even be with them. Like,
Mhm.
really, why am I having to prove myself? You came to me, and why do I have to prove myself that I'm worthy?
Right.
So when someone tries makes you prove something, that's a really big red flag right there. It's
Mhm.
subtle.
Mhm.
Um, some women kind of are groomed, conditioned. They've been in that environment, a highly competitive environment.
Yeah.
When they're competing against you, then you also know that's a big red flag as well.
And I like what you
Wow.
said about like looking at the family dynamics. Like, what was your
Yes.
background story? What were some of the things that you saw growing up? And trying to really start picking out what wasn't really healthy, so that maybe we can be preemptive.
Hmm.
Know that maybe I have a tendency towards something like that. That's really helpful, I think, as we're looking for those signs. And those signs are really good ones too, because like you said, it doesn't always start out as some big thing that someone does to, cause it, but it's these little things that,
Hmm.
yeah, thank you.
Yes.
And, yeah,
Hmm.
and the other thing that I really love that you said is how you're trying to change how your daughter views things
Hmm.
because they watch us. They
Yes.
don't necessarily listen to what we say, they watch what we do, how
Hmm.
we react, how we interact with people. So if you're accepting certain things and that behavior, that becomes a norm. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm
Hmm.
supposed to tolerate this. I'm supposed to stay longer. I'm supposed to deal with this. So
Right.
that is such a great thing to be able to say, no, I want to change the way things were seen by my daughter. So I want to change the way she knows how to present and how to see these signs.
And
Absolutely.
So,
have those conversations with them, right? Like have the
yeah,
real conversation. Like, you
yeah,
know what?
right.
Mom did this,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's what you saw. But I need to talk to you about why that was unhealthy and why I don't want you to do the same thing because this is what happened as a
Hmm.
result. Just really having those really frank, heart to heart, honest
Yeah,
conversations with our daughters. Because
difficult.
for me, it took me a minute to kind of get into the phase of okay, I can be honest with her and just like take off
Hmm.
the code and the veil of
Hmm.
mom is perfect.
Protection.
I know everything.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I wanted her to trust my advice,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
I needed to now be vulnerable and show
Hmm.
her,
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have all the answers. I didn't have all the answers. I'm learning now and I'm sharing with you.
Hmm.
Yes. Oh,
No.
definitely.
Yeah,
That is such a big one because sometimes those crumbs look like just enough effort to keep us holding on.
that
I'm gonna
part.
give you just a little bit just to hold you on. I'm doing all
Hmm.
these other things, but I'm gonna give you a little bit just to keep you stringing along.
That
Mm.
What are
part.
some of the deeper reasons why women fall into this pattern? Is it conditioning, self-worth, or is it just a fear of being alone?
I think it's all of the above.
Mm.
Mhm.
Everybody's different. Everybody has different reasonings, motives, um, and we've been conditioned really to look outside of ourselves for love, for validation, for protection, for
Yeah.
comfort. And I think that plays one of the biggest roles in why we accept crumbs in relationships because we've been
Mhm.
told, well, you only get love outside of yourself. You're supposed to love others
Mhm.
and allow others to love you, but not really love yourself. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that I experienced because I was always looking outside of myself to
Mhm.
find love, acceptance, validation, affection. And I didn't realize that it already is inside of me. I already have it here. But if you're taught growing up, whether you're in family, religion, school, whatever, it's always about self-sacrifice. It's always about giving more than you receive,
Especially
and
women.
especially women.
Mhm.
And with that, and we've been, of course, fed the fantasy by media that says our Prince Charming is going to come. They're going to rescue
Mhm.
us on a white horse, and they're going to make everything better.
Mhm.
But the reality is, if you didn't grow up seeing that, if your
Hmm.
father wasn't like that, if your uncles, your brothers, or whomever, if they were not like that, then that's not really what you're going to expect. You
Yeah.
get what you have experienced and expect
Mhm.
a child into your young adult years, etc. Um,
Mhm.
Low self-esteem is definitely a part of it because if you're never really taught how to really see yourself as more than someone who is always giving, always sacrificing, always being the labor mule, some always taking care of other people's emotional needs, then you fall into those situations and it's so easy because it feels normal
Yeah.
until something abnormal happens. And it will take years for a lot of people to really recognize this is not normal. This is abnormal because we are afraid of introspection. We're afraid of getting the healing. We're in denial about a lot of things that, hey, I'm cool, I'm good, everybody loves me, everybody
Mhm.
likes me, or whatever. But then you find yourself in relationships where you're not getting 100% from them, but you're giving 1,000%. And
Mhm.
that is so draining, it's exhausting. And then you find yourself either married to or in long-term relations with a child with these people. And then it
Mhm.
gets 10 times worse. And it feels like you have no way to escape because you don't have the
Yeah.
tools to be able
Yeah.
to escape, to cope, and to really turn it around.
And you're always in that position of always trying to prove that I'm worthy. I'm the best person for you
Hmm.
because now you have conditioned yourself to, I'm doing all these things for you, and I want you to love me. I want you to.
Hmm.
So yeah, I can
Yeah.
see that. That's
And
yeah.
have those, you know, we see a lot of examples of getting love outside of ourselves, but we just don't see it like in the media or television, books, what it looks like to just love yourself. A lot of
Hmm.
times it's considered selfish,
Right.
and
Yes.
it, has this negative connotation on it. And
Hmm.
I know, growing up and even in my adult years, just seeing what healthy self-care looks like is just,
Hmm.
it is foreign to a lot of us. So,
Absolutely.
being able to do that for ourselves. But it's also like, so when we do start to get into a healthier place and we realize I've been settling for less than I deserve, what do we do? Because that's a huge awakening just in itself, right? Just realizing, hey, I've been settling for way less than I deserve. So now then, how do we take the steps to do better? What are some of those first steps that women can take to start demanding and expecting more out of their relationships?
Hmm. I think one of the first steps is when you come to the point of self-awareness, you're going to go through a grieving process.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
You're going to go through a grieving
Say that again.
process.
Yes.
You must
Yes.
allow it. You must allow it. And
Yes.
Yes.
remember, think about all the things that you wanted out of the relationship, the dream that you had that is completely shattered now, and
Mm.
allow yourself to grieve what never happened, what did happen, and taking responsibility for your part in it, not blaming yourself. It's just taking responsibility.
Right.
And then creating a plan, what I like to call a self-care plan, because you really are oftentimes find that this relationship has traumatized you in some kind of way, and you now need to create a plan to heal from that trauma. And that
Mm.
could include therapy. We all know
Mhm.
that therapy is a really great choice, and something that most people, when they are in the freshness of the breakup, the freshness of leaving, and reclaiming yourself and your power, you need help, you need support.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, so that's a big part of it. And then the other thing I'm really big on is creating a foundation of radical self-care. It is
Mm.
now all about you. It is now all about what you need, what you desire, what you feel, how you want to experience life going forward. And I think another thing is really forgiving yourself. We forget that
Mm.
part too. We People
Mhm.
tell you, you need to forgive him, you need to forgive everybody else
Yes.
but yourself. But that you are the first person that you should forgive. And
Yes.
and it's not just because you have done something drastically wrong or that you sinned or that you just made this horrible mistake. It's simply you didn't know what you didn't know. You allowed things to happen because of the state of mind that you were in. And so you get to give yourself grace and forgive yourself so that you can move forward and that you can start the healing process.
Yeah. And I can't let a discussion about grief. I mean, I have to say that a lot of clients who are grieving a relationship, so the first thing we do is that bedevilment and
Hmm.
or enshrining. So either that person was the best thing ever or they were the most horrible. And like you said, not taking blame, but taking some portion of responsibility
Hmm.
for what happened to us, but
Hmm.
for our reaction to it.
Hmm.
What we don't want to be is the victim.
Right.
And the longer we stay in the blame game, it was all them, they were horrible, they did this, they did that, then we give our power away.
Hmm.
And it's
Mhm.
so important to start seeing, okay, so what were my missteps? What could I do differently this time? And having grace, like you said, around that. But absolutely, we have to find how we can change and then
Hmm.
starting to take back that power to then do better. Just do better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on that, forgiving yourself is hard.
Mm.
Part of the healing process and forgiving yourself is very hard.
Hmm.
Forgiving other people is the easy part. You
Hmm.
forgive and you say, okay, I forgave my. But forgiving yourself is very hard because you have to look at yourself and, like you say, take accountability.
Right.
What did I bring to this relationship? What was my responsibility in some of these? Then forgiving yourself because we say, no, I stayed too long.
Hmm.
I should have been gone. These other things go on in your head. And then loving on yourself and say, give yourself some grace because now
Hmm.
you know better, so you're going to do better. You
Yes.
didn't know better. You were in love bomb stage. You were in la la land. You were in delusional land. But now you know, so you do better. But forgive yourself. It's very hard because you have to look at the responsibility that you had in this as well and not just that other person.
Mm.
Right. And I think a bigger part of that is recognizing and remembering how much power we gave away in the
Mhm.
relationship. We and forgiving ourselves for that because we gave so much of our power away, either
Yes.
knowingly or unknowingly. And a lot of times it's because we are looking for someone to take care of us, our emotional needs, our physical needs, our financial needs, and we give so much power away. We lose ourselves in the relationship. And I think the biggest part is forgiving yourself for that and remembering you are powerful and you
Yes.
can do it all for yourself. It's great to
Yes.
have someone to help you. It's great to have that
Yes.
cherry on top, that person who's really there for you, who's a part of your fan club, as one of my exes used to say all the time, you got this big fan club, and I know there was part of a lot of jealousy there, but
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
remember that we're the biggest part of our own fan club and that we are equipped to do the things
Mhm.
that we're asking other people to do, then we can take that power back and we
Yeah,
can forgive ourselves for giving so much of it away.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And let's just be real, setting the standard isn't always easy, especially for women. We've been taught to be nurturers, the
Hmm.
givers, the ones who always put others first. How can they start setting boundaries and really standing firm in their worth when it feels uncomfortable at first?
Oh, that's a great question. One of my favorite questions too, because boundaries
Yeah.
is huge. It has to begin with
Yes.
courage. It takes courage to set boundaries, especially if you've been told your entire life you're supposed to give and give and give
Yeah,
and
yeah.
defer and allow other people to go first. Um, when we have been conditioned in this way, starting to say no, in whatever way that feels authentic to you, what feels even easy for you at the moment, practicing it, saying,
Yeah.
no, that doesn't work for me. No, I don't think I want to do that. No, that I
Mhm.
have other plans. Filling up your calendar, filling up your life with things that you want to do. But it's really hard in a relationship or when you've just left a relationship to make sure you maintain that boundary because
Yeah.
the person is familiar.
Yeah.
You're used to them, they're used to you, whether it's good or bad. You
Yep.
know that person and you know what to expect. And I think that's the biggest thing is we know what to expect from the familiar person. And so creating a boundary around the familiarity, as it were, makes it that much more difficult. Because we want to take the easy path. We want to take the path of least resistance. So setting that boundary in front of that path so you don't go down that road again is the boundary you set for yourself first
Yeah.
and make a commitment, make an intention, make
Mhm.
a dedication, a decision to say, you know, I want better for myself. And so this is a boundary I'm setting. I will no longer accept phone calls. I will no longer accept text. I will no longer have conversations with this person until I am in this place mentally, emotionally, and literally physically where I can have a conversation without going back, without breaking down, without crashing out, as they say, without doing
Mhm.
any of those things. So you have to, the boundary starts with you. What is the
Yeah.
boundary you're going to set with yourself? And then when you're able to set those boundaries with yourself, and I kind of reframe it as what are my policies now? You know, how do I want to, what's important?
I like
Our
that.
company policies.
Yes, you because you are the company, you are the
Mhm.
corporation, and you could set the policy that I will no longer accept late night phone calls because I need to get my rest and I don't need to have any of that disturbed. I will no longer accept people who tolerate me instead of celebrating me. I no
Mhm.
longer am going to put myself in a position where I'm giving more than I'm receiving or is given
Mhm.
to me. So these are some things that you have to really kind of think through and
Mhm.
figure out what is the most important thing for me and what makes me feel good. And you notice I'm saying me a lot,
Mhm.
just like a little song,
Yes.
me, you know. Um,
Yes.
and it becomes easier the more you practice it, the more you
Mhm.
implement, the more you honor yourself because
Mhm.
you have kept that boundary, because you've kept your word to yourself.
And
Yeah.
you know what? I think what helps me when I set boundaries, especially when it comes to relationships that you have to break away from, is I always remember how they made me feel.
Yes.
That keeping that band-aid off. So I always remember how that person made me feel so I won't fall back into those habits because when that person's familiar and you're used to a certain way of doing things in that routine, it's easy to fall. You can set a boundary, but if you're not firm and understand why you set this, you're gonna fall right back into that habit again. So
Mm-hmm.
I always remember, okay, it's a reason why we broke up. Why did we
Yeah.
break up?
Yep.
And I always remember, and if it's that one thing, I remember how that made me feel. Do I want to feel that way again? Because
Mm-hmm.
yeah, people change. That's great. Good for you. Happy for you. But I don't have to deal with it anymore. And I'm
Right.
happy that you changed, but that's above me now. I'm not
Right.
doing that anymore. So I always remember how that person made me feel in order for me to keep my boundaries until I'm strong enough to deal with it without having to use that tactic.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why going no contact is important, especially those relationships that have deeply hurt you, have
Mhm.
created such harm and trauma for you. And a lot of people will try to make you feel guilty even for going no contact with people.
Yeah,
They're like, well, you should
I've heard.
forgive. Well, forgiving doesn't mean I have to be in contact with that person. It does not mean that I have to continuously be exposed to that person's behavior and have them always making me feel bad. And then
Mhm.
some people say, well, a person can't make you do anything. You're right. But for right now, this is how I feel whenever I'm around that person, and I choose to go no contact,
Mhm.
remembering our
Mhm.
power of choice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And those
Mhm.
boundaries are for all of our relationships, not just
Yes.
romantic.
Yes.
That we should have boundaries in our families,
Hmm.
at
Mhm.
work, and just really exercising that proactive muscle, right? Instead of being reactionary to everything, we want to take proactive steps towards our healing and what's best for us. And boundaries are good for everybody, really. You
They
know,
are.
for the person you're having the boundary, setting the boundary with, and for yourself.
Yes.
So don't think that it's the worst thing ever. It really is a thing for people to understand the boundaries within which this relationship exists, that it's good.
Mhm.
Have some of those parameters. But
And it teaches people to respect you too.
yeah,
When you have boundaries, they respect you and they understand that you're not going to just go with the flow.
Right.
yeah. Yeah. So
Exactly.
in that vein of being proactive, so we talk about what we don't want, right? But we also want to start seeking relationships that do feel like it's the whole cake and not just the crumbs, that it is more fulfilling. It is a healthy relationship. So what are some practical ways that women can actually build those types of relationships? Like I said, whether it's romantic, platonic, family, career, that the relationships that actually pour into us.
Mm. I'm going to go back to yourself again. It's
Mhm.
about the relationship you have with yourself, the one that you're developing with yourself, falling in love with yourself, becoming your best cheerleader. Because if you people treat us the way we allow them to treat us and the way we treat ourselves. If we're really
Yes.
honest with ourselves, we're like, so how am I treating myself? Am I giving myself the very best? Am
Mhm.
I speaking to myself in loving, kind ways? All the things that we want other people to do for us, we have to do it for ourselves times 10 so that we can recognize when the right people are coming into our lives. When
Mhm.
people are out of pocket, like, look, you have lost your mind apparently because I would never talk to myself like that. So what makes you think you're gonna talk to me like that?
Mm-mm.
Really have to go back to the drawing board, to the foundation, which is ourselves, because we are the least common denominator in every relationship that we find ourselves in. And so
Mhm.
as we build the relationship with ourselves, making it strong, making it resilient, making it loving, adventurous, kind, whatever you want in a relationship is the thing that you should be doing for yourself. And
Mhm.
I never really understood that before, but now I'm like, oh, I love myself. I love me. And now, when people aren't treating
Mhm.
me well, or when they want to kind of get out of pocket, when I say little snide remarks or being passive aggressive, or all the things that I have worked so hard to change in myself and in my life, and speaking kindly to myself, giving myself all the material things, the physical, emotional, social, spiritual things to myself, if I'm not seeing that in another person, whether it's in a work relationship, family relationship, romantic relationships, then I have to say, you know what, I'm going to pass on that. That's not for
Mhm.
me because that's just not
Yeah.
the way I see myself reflected inside of a relationship with someone else. So the best relationship is the one you have with yourself. It takes some time, it takes development. You can't jump from one relationship to the next, to the next, to the next, and think you're going to ever cultivate that. It just will not happen. So you must take time after you come out of a relationship, you started your healing process, you've basically cleared out all the gunk,
Mhm.
cleared out all the
Mhm.
crummy stuff,
Mhm.
cleared out all the things, and
Mhm.
and really remodeled your life,
Mhm.
so you wouldn't allow a wild animal into your newly remodeled home.
Mhm.
So you have to kind of think of that in terms of your relationship. Your whole psyche has been remodeled when you've
Mhm.
healed yourself. Keyword being you've healed yourself.
Mhm.
And then developing that relationship with yourself where you are absolutely in love with yourself and so you can recognize when love comes into your life.
Yeah. And then, one of the things Sharice and I talk a lot about is, really envisioning what we
Mhm.
want in our lives too. And so from that space that you're talking about, you're in the perfect space to then think about, okay, what does a good relationship for me look like? Because it's going to
Yes.
differ from person
Yeah.
to person, right? And just really getting clear on that too.
Mhm. And it
Yeah.
takes a little bit of time to get clear on that,
Mhm.
especially if you have been in a series of bad relationships. And that's the only blueprint you have. So you really have to just rip up that entire
Mhm.
old narrative, old blueprints, old stories, and
Mhm.
start to create another one that where you are the writer, the director, the producer, the main character in that story,
Mhm.
and be with someone else who is also a main character in their story. And you all can come together and be whatever you decide to be. But it does take time to really get clear on that because
Mhm.
the programming has been there for years and now you're
Yes.
reprogramming. And the reprogramming takes time. It's not an instant thing. It's not an easy thing because we always want to go back to default. We always want to go back to default, but you have to create a new default. So,
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
changing, that habit is
hmm
is hard, but you have to mentally be wanting to change
yes.
because once you make it in your mind, I have to change. There is no other way. You'll push through it, but you have to be
Mhm.
really diligent about it. That's such a powerful shift, and I imagine that part of this is getting really clear on what you actually want and need.
hmm
So, how can women redefine their relationship standards so they're aligning with people who truly uplift and support them?
Yeah. So for me, I began to um like I mentioned before, get clear about what those relationships look like. How do I want to feel inside the relationship? I think that's really a key. And then getting in spaces, getting around people who are where you want to be. You, family members who have been notoriously out of pocket, rude, passive aggressive, manipulative, and all. That's not who you need to continue to be around. That's the hardest
Mhm.
thing to do because we've been told our family is everything. Well, yes, if they're healthy, but if they're not, then you have to
Yeah.
create what I call your soulmate family and community. And
Oh,
those
I
are
like that.
people who are speaking your language. They are the people who understand you, who you understand, people who
Mhm.
celebrate you, not just tolerate you, people who want to see you win,
Mm.
people who offer a lending hand, whether you ask for it or not. Of course, then, but still finding your voice to be able to say, you know what, I need this. I really need this kind of relationship. And then when you are finding those people, show appreciation for them,
Yeah.
appreciate yourself, appreciate them. And if they're also reciprocating, like telling you how much they appreciate having you in their life, oh my gosh, that you have found your people.
Yeah.
So I think whether it's in work, because when I was looking at for other jobs and stuff like that, I was tired of where I was. And I said, the next job I want to be in, I cannot have a micromanager. I can't have someone who's making my life miserable. I need to get into my space of I need to interview them. Whoever the hiring manager is, I got to interview them and make
Yes.
sure that if I'm feeling a little icky in the interview, I'm gonna feel worse in the job. So
Right.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
so that's part of it as well. So not just romantic relationship, like we mentioned, it's also work relationship. It's also family relationship. So we can choose our family, we can choose our romantic partners, we can choose our work coworkers and our managers or what
Environment.
have you. We can make the choice, but it takes awareness. It takes again introspection,
Mhm.
self-awareness, and deciding how do I want to feel in this relationship. And if
Mm.
you're gonna feel like you're gonna be harassed all the time, if you're gonna feel manipulated all the time, if you're gonna feel, just abused, then that's just not the relationship for you.
Oh no.
You just cut it off and keep it moving.
Yeah, I like what you say about when you go into interviews. That's one thing I told my daughters.
hmm
When they go into interview, how they project themselves to you. Have a list of questions to ask them
Yes.
because you want to see how they react to certain things.
hmm
Because what you see, that first visit, that first impression, is usually going to be the same way or even worse when you work with them.
hmm hmm
Just like any relationship, it's great in the beginning, but if you look at all the whole picture and those little things that you don't pay attention to or you let slide, it only exaggerates as the relationship progresses. So
Right.
you have to really look and be intentional about seeing things. But like you said, it's the awareness piece. When
Mm-hmm.
you're aware, then you see things differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the things we concentrate here on the show, is really that inner work, our healing, our, learn
Yes.
what our joy feels like, what is balance in our lives, doing all of that introspective work, because that's what shapes our lives. And so,
Mhm.
including their relationships we attract. I know for me, when I've attracted a relationship from a broken space where I wasn't
Mhm.
doing my work, that was a very different experience than when I was in a healthy space
Healthy.
and attracted a
Mhm.
relationship. And so we
Mhm.
really have to make sure we have that fertile ground. So,
Mhm.
what would you say, Samantha, is how does our inner work impact the kind of relationships we create and sustain in our
Mhm. Yeah. So the work that we do on ourselves is ongoing. I would say is ongoing, but it's also vital so that every day we're reconnecting with ourselves. And when I say that, like meditation, it's about really like putting your hand in your heart, having conversations with yourself, to really come back to yourself, because we give so much of our energy away. We give so much of our thoughts away, our ideas away, our feelings away, but we have to really bring it back in and say, who am I? What do I
Mm,
feel right now? Who do I want to be in this moment? What do I need right now? And by having that consistent daily, when you wake up in the morning, in the afternoon, at night before you go to bed, when you come back to yourself, you won't forget yourself. And
right.
it makes relationships more sustainable, because then you can be honest with yourself. You can be honest with the people that are around you. You can know when your gut is talking to you and when the intuition is really ringing your bell. It's like, look, you just really need to come on and pay attention now. This is not what you want. This is not what we want anymore. And you can come back to yourself again and again and again, and you can sustain relationships better, and then you can decide which ones you don't want to sustain anymore,
Yes.
because it doesn't work for you. It's not healing for you. It's not uplifting for you. And you also, because you've poured so much into yourself, your cup is full, and now you're giving from the
At first.
overflow. Right.
Yes.
You're no longer
Yes.
thirsty. You're just kind of cool, calm, cool, and collect, like a cucumber, like they say. And so it's like you can sit back, you can observe more. You can
Yeah.
observe what people say.
Yes.
You can
Oh, yes.
hear every
Yes.
day, whether they're saying it or
Yes.
not. You can read between the lines. You can feel it in your gut and feel it in your heart. You can have that little ding, ding, ding that's happening in your mind. It's like, wait,
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah.
think this is not that, and I'm gonna move on. But then you also can recognize when people are being authentic, when they're being genuine, because you have given yourself permission to be authentic and genuine too. But it's all about coming back to yourself, putting your hand in your heart and say, who am I in this moment? What do I want to feel right now? Where do I want to be? What do I want to experience in this space right now? And just being silent for a while. And then it'll come to you. Your energy will be reborn. You'll be fulfilled up again, and you'll go out, and it won't be a stretch to give of yourself in the way you want to, not because you feel obligated, not because you feel like you're gonna feel some guilt because you didn't do what they said. You don't have any of that anymore. It's just simply, I feel like this, or I don't feel like doing that. And it doesn't matter what other people say, what they think, how they try to change your mind, or change you. When people start trying to change you, that's the biggest red flag. And you're no
Yeah, right.
longer allowing that to happen because you're very happy with who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And when you have a depletion and you're, trying to give from an empty cup, you
Mm.
act out of desperation
Yeah.
and you make wrong decisions
Yep.
Hmm.
based on that, because now
Every
you're all over the place. It's chaotic. You don't have anything in you. You don't have any fuel. So
Hmm.
now you're just making decisions based off, raw emotion and not, rationale.
Hmm.
So,
mm,
it just makes things so crazy. So
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. So
mm,
that's such an important point, because we can get so caught up in trying to find the right person whatever that may mean,
Mm-hmm.
and forget how much our own energy and well-being play into it. What are
Absolutely.
some of the ways women can cultivate joy and balance in their lives so they're naturally attracting and maintaining healthy whole relationships?
Mm.
I like this question. Because I'm in this space right now where it's all about intentionality,
Mhm.
experiences, joy and bliss, and
Mhm.
play. I think we, especially as Black women, we have not found a way to really enjoy life. We have not made that our goal because it's always been about taking care of other people.
Yeah.
It's always been about, who can I serve? Who can I help? Who can I,
Mhm.
make feel better? But we never really
Yeah.
get back to who we are and what we want, and what it means to enjoy life. And so I think
Mhm.
as we cultivate and are intentional about creating these experiences around us, whether it's going to your favorite bookstore, going to a museum, or going out to the park and playing, giving yourself a picnic. Again, I'm always coming back to self because as you're filling up, as you are creating these moments for yourself, then you have more to offer, you have more to pull from, you have more conversational pieces. Um, and also it's a great way to gauge how other people think,
Mhm.
what they want, what they believe. So if you like taking classes, like one of the things I want to do is take dance classes. And yeah, so I want to take dance classes. And so it's as I'm doing this, I'm fulfilling a dream, I'm fulfilling an intention, and then I also have points of conversation that I can have with people I'm interested in or who may be interested in me. And I can ask questions. So what are you interested in? What are some of your things that you really
Mhm.
enjoy doing? What are some of your aspirations? Some of your goals, some of your deepest desires. And the answers to those questions tell you so much about that person. Because
Yeah.
those standard questions that you go back and forth, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? That
Mhm.
is so basic. But if you're having experiences, you get to talk about those experiences and you get to gauge what are their reactions because sometimes people can be very negative about
Mhm. Mhm.
experiences. Oh, it's too expensive. I can't go out of the country. I don't even have a passport. Or I can't. You're like,
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
no. So, as you are out exploring the world, enjoying the world, and you are finding that light within you and it's shining
Mhm.
out of you, people are
Mhm.
either going to be attracted to
Yep.
it.
What I
Right.
learned too is that when you're deep with yourself, and that includes loving on yourself, and you're so full
Mm-hmm.
that when you have conversations with people, they're deep.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, like you said, they're either going to repel and run, or
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be magnetized and get closer because they want to be close to you because
Right.
they see the depth of who you are, and so
Mm-hmm.
they want to be a part of that.
Right.
And that brings out the deep in them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it allows you to really see who's for you.
Exactly. But also be careful with that as well because
I was gonna say.
yeah, people can be attracted to your light and your energy, and
Yep.
so they turn out to be energy vampires.
That discernment.
Mhm.
Discernment.
Mhm. Oh yeah, discernment is big.
Um,
Yes.
but because you have done the work to get to know yourself and love yourself, when those people come, they may try to fool you for a minute, but
But you're able to see it.
right, you're able to see it, you're able to discern it, you're able to
Mhm.
back away, you're able to
Yeah.
protect your energy, and call your energy back so that you're
Yes.
not depleted,
Yes.
but you're constantly being filled up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I talk about my bucket. My bucket has to give deposits in it. It can't just
Yeah.
my
Exactly.
bucket's empty all the time and I'm with you. Yeah, that's
Mhm.
very wrong. And it doesn't feel good. There's I
Mm-mm.
think the more we exercise these things in our lives and really do the work, it just becomes more and more uncomfortable
Mhm.
to be in those spaces and we get an
Mhm.
indication earlier and we have to listen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Start listening. And I'm not saying, just shut someone down immediately, but you want to see and make sure that this is what it seems to be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It is, then
Mhm.
you believe it and you keep
Mhm.
it. But I
Right.
do want to say thank you so much, Samantha. This has been an amazing conversation. We really could go on, but it's
Yes.
time. And, I think that this is a valuable conversation. And I think a lot of women will walk away from it more empowered and having a much better idea of
Mhm.
what it looks like to no longer accept the crumbs, but really to go for the whole cake in our lives and all different relationships in our lives. So one of the things we do is we always have a call to action for our audience. We want them to walk away with something practical that they can do on their own to further this discussion and this reflection in their lives.
Mhm.
Do you have anything that you might suggest?
Um, I would say my biggest thing is to enroll in university, get a PhD in yourself.
I love
Um,
it.
Yes, I like
I
that.
think that's one of the biggest takeaways I would say is create your whole curriculum around who you are as a person, what makes you tick, what you like, what you don't like, all the things. I mean, and I'm really big on self-discovery, self-development, but the self-discovery piece is so important because oftentimes find ourselves in toxic relationships because we don't know who we are, because
Mhm,
we have tried to take on the identity of someone else, or we are walking around with the identity someone else gave you. So it's so important to go through the self-discovery process, which is why I call it university, and getting a PhD in who you are, because without that, you will continuously allow people to try to shape you and mold you into who
mhm.
they want you to be. And you lose your identity, gets buried deeper and deeper and deeper, and you will take a whole excavation project in order to find yourself again. So
Uh,
definitely get a PhD in who you are, enroll in university,
mhm.
and go through your self-discovery process.
Yes, I love,
Awesome.
love, love that.
Me
Love
too.
it.
I love that. That's a word. That's a
I
bar.
know, I know. And audience, just because you got one assignment doesn't mean you're not going to get one from us too. So we have another
Yes.
little assignment for you. So the first thing is we want you to reflect and recognize, just take a moment and really think about relationships in your life and see where you might be accepting some crumbs. Whether it's the bare minimum effort and consistencies, a one-sided relationship, just take a look and write down the areas where you know you deserve more. The second thing is set your standard. And that goes back to what Samantha said, go into university and understanding yourself so that now you can define what a fulfilling relationship looks like for you. And it's going to look different for all of us. So decide what that looks like for you, whether it's your love relationship, a friendship, your family, all the different relationships in your lives. Get clear on your non-negotiables
Mhm.
and start expecting more. You deserve it. You deserve.
Yes.
And the final thing is take action. Take some small step. This week, challenge yourself to set a boundary or walk away from a situation that no longer deserves you or your energy, or communicate your needs more clearly in another relationship. So you don't have to take drastic changes, just take one step forward, and that's going to start you in the right direction. So, as usual, we want you to drop a comment or DM us about one step you're taking to claim the relationships you deserve. And if this message resonated with you, please share this episode with other women in your lives. And remember, no more crumbs, y'all.
Yeah.
It's time for
No
the
more crumbs.
whole cake.
Cake.
The whole thing. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And before we wrap up with Samantha, where can our audience find No More Crumbs and connect with you?
Sure. Well, here's the cop. This is what the book looks like. Yes, yes. So you can find the book on my website, samanthagregory.com. It's also at selfcarealchemy.com and on Amazon. I do have it on Amazon as well, but when you get it from me, you get an autographed copy of it and a special note from me. So I hope that you'll go to my website and order the book there, and I'll be happy to send it out to you as soon as possible.
And do you have any social media where they can find you as well?
Sure. So most places, Samantha Gregory. So Instagram is on Samantha Gregory. LinkedIn, I'm Samantha Gregory as well. And TikTok, I'm Miss Samantha Gregory, MS Samantha Gregory. And on Facebook, the same thing, MS Samantha Gregory.
We have to make sure that everyone can see you. And to all of our beautiful ladies listening, this is your reminder. You deserve the whole cake. No more crumbs. Samantha, thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. We appreciate you so much. This was so good.
Yeah.
We've both been so excited about this conversation because we knew it would be so good and it would resonate with so many people.
Yeah.
And to our audience, we'll see you next time on Dream, Heal, Thrive. See you later. Bye.